already. And I'll start off with a few housekeeping notes. I'm going to invite you to come on in nice and close. We are hopefully going to be an intimate group tonight. We'll see, but I am requesting that everybody be willing to be participatory, cameras on, present during this course. If it's the kind of thing that of course you can go to the bathroom and turn off your thing. We don't need to see everything. But if you're like, oh, I just want to listen like a podcast, then maybe listen to it on the recording another time. And then also, to be clear, because we're recording, and the nature of a mastermind is very inclusive. It's like a discussion. Because of that nature, I'd love to be able to highlight and spotlight people as we record. And so I have Sharon here on tech, along with Bella. So these two beauties are supporting this journey that we're going on. And I'll probably end up repeating the housekeeping. But if you are listening to this as a recording, in the future, I do recommend, you journal when we do the breakout groups, and that you perhaps, because the mastermind is interactive, perhaps contact me directly so you can get access to the next time that I do an in-person or a live mastermind. I really do hope to tailor it to the people who are here. And the work I do is very spirit guided. So we'll see what comes through. It'll be like a collective oracle. Okay. So we still have people arriving. If you are just coming on, please turn your cameras on. And as we gather, I'm going to invite you to deepen your breath. I know we're at a Tantra festival and everything's about breath, sound, movement. But I'm going to invite you to just drop in deeper and say, oh, what is my breath telling me right now? Follow the expansion and the melting on the exhale, and adjust your body according to what your body wisdom tells you. What micro adjustments do you want to make for more conductivity? So just kind of tune in and notice as the inhalation turns into an exhalation at the top of the breath, or the other way around at the bottom. Notice, what does your body need right now to be more plugged in, more connected? So whether your eyes are closed or open, just gather yourself, like arriving more and more here in this moment, letting go of whatever rush or movement or transition you're just letting go of, just being in this breath, noticing where your body's making contact with the air and how that feels on your skin and in your nostrils. Maybe we'll notice what the air tastes like. Notice the sounds in your own room. Notice the sounds inside your own system. Maybe if you tune in, you can hear not just your breath, but your blood pumping or your stomach gurgling. What's happening inside for a few more breaths? Notice the unique frequency that is your essential vibration. And invite your ecstatic current, your erotic nature to come into this circle. So as you're breathing, you can turn up the eros, you can welcome your pleasure. Find the pleasure in the breath. If you really expand the lungs, it gives a massage to the heart. Go ahead and rub your hands together. Bringing a hand to the heart, a hand to your sex center. Just feeling the arc of connection, almost like a rainbow between the heart and the sex. And let your pelvis fill with awareness, with permission, with your conscious co-creative energy as we gather in this circle. Together we invoke, evoke, and invite our guides, allies, all energies that are equal to or higher than our collective circle. Welcoming the widest possible wisdom, the deepest possible healing as we explore this erotic entrepreneurial mastermind. What wisdom is here? We open our channels to the highest guidance system so that we can serve the world, awakening ourselves and others into a full sacred sexual expression. Take a few final breaths to listen. Is there a message from beyond? Is there something your guides want you to know right now about this work? Last 2 breaths. Crystallizing that message, making a sound as you open your eyes. And if you don't already have a pen and a piece of paper, go ahead and take a note. What mantra, words, reminder, what inspiration did you get in that brief centering? So go ahead and write it down. And it doesn't have to make sense, just a reminder to your higher self. And then when you're ready to have your pen handy, I'm going to invite you to lean into the camera, to come closer. And on gallery view, I'm going to invite you to just look at the other beings who've gathered. And I'm going to because hopefully this is for you. You know, if you consider yourself a sacred sexual healer, whether it's sex and relationship and love coach or teacher, or there's my alarm reminder telling me it's sunset. Because if I wasn't here with you, I'd be like, time to go out and look at the sky. So we're gathering at this glorious, I consider sunset a very sacred time here in San Diego. So it's special to be sharing it with you. And hopefully you are if you're not already in the profession, if this work, and it takes all shapes and colors. I've worked with pole dancers, and I've worked with, individuals who are teaching white tantra at the highest level, and then everything in between that, and cam workers, and it's like anyone who's working with sacred sexuality and any flavor of that. And the reason that we want to gather as professionals is because as a field, it is, I would say it's almost like the Wild West with its new ways of being. It doesn't really apply to traditional business models. Like when we are working with the life force energy in our work, like that is our teacher. Like the erotic force, this universal current is wiser and more profound, and it's our spiritual practice and teaching. It's not like, oh, I can just go by this business model or not, but we can definitely borrow, and I have been for many years studying with some of the great business masters, and then I say, well, what's relevant to our field? And then I find that no matter what some business master out there teaches, the most profound way to transmit, share, grow, and be alive with this current is to actually work with our peers, is to work with others who are working with this, and then the synergy happens between us. So, this is genuinely for those of you who are in the practice of whether you're working with sessions, one-on-one, small groups, large groups, writing, that this is your calling. It's not a career, it's really a calling. So if that's not you, if you're like, hey, this is my first Tantra festival and I'm just checking it out, like blessings, and have a wonderful Tantra festival, and I invite you to to part. So on that, I'm going to ask you, those of you who are here, to actually chat in the chat box what you are, if you have a title, a label, what do you call yourself in this field? And it's okay if that's an evolution or you have different titles, but go ahead and put into the chat box what your, if you're a love coach or erotic dancer, or go ahead and type your title into the chat box. Great. So I'm going to read these because this is participatory, and I'm going to just invite you to put yourself out there and put your title in there. So I've got Introduction to 5D Sexuality. I've got Yoga Dom and Mind, Body, Heart, Soul, Pleasure-Based Life and Business Coach. I love it. These are great. So we've got Mentor and Stripper and Erotic Body Work and Relationship Coach and Practitioner of the Healing Arts. And so I'm really going to ask for participation. So if you're not going to turn on your camera, I'm going to ask our tech support to actually take you out of the class this time. And we are also going to close the doors at 30 minutes in. So write them if you get kicked off for some reason. Okay, so we've got sex and intimacy coaches for women, and body-based journeys, and erotic embodiment, sacred sexuality, priestess, sensual body work, teaching polarity and date night format. This is wonderful. This is really, just as I read this and as you see this, you can feel a kind of a pyramidship growing. Wow, we've really got a lot of our colleagues here who collectively have a lot of experience and wisdom. And so a lot of us may not have a title yet. So I see that also arising, and that's understandable. And sometimes our titles, because it's like, oh, I've done that for this long and now I'm bored with that and I'm trying something new. It evolves. And that's really part of the nature of being with the ecstatic current, is that it is very evolutionary. So teaching couples to connect, squirting, massage, and multidimensional traveling together. This is juicy. It sounds really fun. So wonderful. We've got lots of people who are doing lots of different expressions, and that's what the erotic energy does, is that it expresses in different ways, and people need all kinds of support. And what's also really profound is the people who come to me aren't necessarily the people who are going to be attracted to you. And so we have, as we gather, we can actually cross-pollinate and support each other's clients as well. Okay, so we've got a sense of what an erotic entrepreneur is. And I want to make sure that we have a sense of what a mastermind is, because a lot of people confuse masterminding with coaching. And, coaching is a wonderful growing field and profession. And for many years, I'll give you a little background about myself uh, in a moment, but I want to make clear that I am a coach and do love to support someone, in terms of like, other than a consultant. So I'll make like three distinctions, right? So like a consultant is, oh, wow, you want to learn about the business and I'm going to consult with you and we're going to work on your business. Um, and that's different, specifically, like, for example, somebody in there, said specifically that they're a yoga dom. Well, you would go to someone who teaches domination. Like even though I've, practiced and played in that area, that's not what I teach. So I wouldn't be a dom consultant, right? But a consultant is in the same business as you are. A mentor is someone who's role modeling, who's actually saying, doing something that you would want to be doing. A coach is saying, look, I may or may not know your business, but I'm here to support you. I'm here to support your full expression. And a mastermind is actually when we gather together from different perspectives, different aspects of the field. And then there's a peer coaching element to it, which means that it's participatory. And it's not, oh, it's the KamalaDevi show. It's, I want to hear what's going on in your, what's challenging you, what opportunities you have. And then we are going to crowdsource from the group, what wisdom we can collectively come up with to have breakthroughs for those individuals. And that individual who's working on that challenge, it tends to be speaking for the collective. It tends to be something that we're all going to benefit from. So that's the nature of a mastermind. And I like to think of it, instead of like, mastermind, actually a group heart. So I'm going to invite us to drop in a little bit deeper to how willing are we, as a collective, how willing are we to see each other succeed, to want for each other, to want to see each other's soul shine. Like, I'm here to light you up. I'm here so that you can be the best version of you, because I want to be the best version of me, because I know that that's how we're going to support the rest of the world. And you and I know how many lost and hurting, suffering souls are like looking for someone to give them permission to reconnect with their sexuality. And it's such a beautiful thing. If I can't reach, I can't reach all of them, but that if we can support each other in reaching more people on the planet to plug back in. So from that generosity of spirit, from that place of wanting for each other, we can really activate the group heart. Now, I want to tell you a little bit, here's how the workshop's going to go. Like, I want to tell you what the roadmap is, and then I want to hear from you. And I'm also wanting to adjust it to what is really alive and what's really valuable for the field. So we'll kind of see, I want you to be feeling in to what do I really want to get out of this, that I can will actually take my business to the next level so that I can better serve my clients. So be in that inquiry, because by the end of this time together, I want you to literally widen your toolbox. I want you to walk away from here with something that you will do differently. Okay. So what we're going to do is, crowdsource some of the challenges that we're facing as a group. And we are going to, I'm going to share some of the observations that I've made in, my 20 something years in the field of sacred sexuality. Because the field has been, it's amazing how much it's been changing and growing and what the trends are. So I want to share about that. I also, want to speak to this, like some of the, the patterns and how we can, what is your next step is really what this course is tuning towards. One of the things we may do together, though, is talk about how do we talk about our work, because that could always use refining and upgrading, you know, in a world that doesn't have a whole lot of templates for this is exactly what it is that we do. And we will have a brainstorm and discussion Q&A, so that by the end of some self-assessment, which might look like, you know, breakout group or two, that you're really clear on how this is going to take your work to that next level. So with that as the roadmap, I'm hoping that you identify that you are, you know, supposed to be here with us. And for those of you who aren't wanting to participate fully, I invite you to listen to the recording in the future, and this will, you know, probably be a threshold where we're going to say goodbye to those who aren't a match for what we're doing. Okay, so I'll have my tech team take care of that. And the questions that I have for everybody right now is, what are, and I want to crowdsource, so we're going to make a list. What are the challenges that you're seeing in this field or space? Okay, so again, you look at your own personal work and you say, oh, what is the biggest challenge I'm having? Because there's a good chance that you're not alone in it. And let's take some shares. And actually, one of my practices and policies is to often start in a field of love. You know, it's really easy to be like, oh, let's complain, because there are, you know, this is, especially during these times, these can be really hard times. So instead of really starting there, hold off on that, because that's where the work is to do. I want to ask for a few wins or celebrations. And this is really hard. Like, it's easier for us to complain and say, oh, this, you know, getting clients, and let me talk about my inner demons, or let's talk about how the, you know, the FOSTA and like what's happening politically. Like, it's really easy for us to complain. But one of the hardest things is for us to actually brag and to like self-promote. And I mean, unless without the agenda of trying to get any clients, just the genuine like, wow, I fucking love my work. And let me tell you why. And I'm doing really well in this. Or so I would love to take a few celebrations of why you love this work. And then we'll go into the troubleshooting of challenges. So who wants to volunteer to gloat a little bit? I see Leanne.
Yeah, hi. So I'm actually a naturopathic medical doctor. So I went to college for almost 30 years while I was raising my kids. So I know that I can help anybody through any fucking thing, because that's a challenge, and one of them is deaf, so it's even more.
Sure.
And I had to do it by myself away from my family. So the one thing that's really awesome is that I went through academics, and there's like I think there's less stigma to talk about sex and having it be something that's legitimately taken as healing, when I have the background of, yeah, but I went to medical school.
Mm-hmm.
And then also that gives me access to other doctors, so that way I can work with other doctors and healers. And then also I know how to speak their language. So there's not the barrier of, necessarily, it can be, but like, you know, being perceived as being fluffy woo woo, when I'm like, yeah, but I understand all this physiology, and I can explain to you hormones and blah, 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 blah. So yeah, that's the way I went.
Wonderful, Leanne. What a great role model that you are in the area of being a bridge, you know, between
That's
worlds.
exactly it.
That's
Exactly
fantastic.
it. Yeah.
I love
yeah.
it.
Yeah. And that's only one of my things, but yeah, I can let
Yeah.
somebody else
So
go.
let's celebrate the boldness of just making that declaration. Let's kind of give her a little love shower. Good. Who's next?
I just want to remind that whoever speaks is going to be on the recording. So
yes. Right. Great. So my intention with this recording is it is, again, to keep it intimate, to keep it participatory, and I want to get permission that we can spotlight you, so it's not just on me, because it's a group interaction. And is that okay? And then if not, please say, hey, I don't want to be recorded, but I want to answer the question, and you can still participate. Okay, so that's how we'll handle it. Scott, did you want to share next?
Thank you so much, Kamala. It's great to see you and be with you. And I just want to get it clear and flat that I'm okay here in this room with you and all of the participants, because I don't fit exactly the description, but you know me personally. And I'm really, really interested in this conversation. And it sounds like a tremendously potent conversation. So I just wanted to kind of introduce myself to everybody also, because
Great.
I don't have the same kind of things to participate and to contribute. And I didn't want to like sit here in the background like a stalker. So
I appreciate the integrity around that. Yeah, it is important too for those of us that have a soul calling. Like it's so inexplicable, because sometimes it looks like, wow, I'm going all in, I'm doing all this. And sometimes it looks like I just need to be in this space. Something about my soul put me here. And I don't know whether I'm going to be in service to this field tomorrow or 20 years from now, but I'm on that path,
I am definitely on the path, on a participant, and I'm developing ideas for a retreat center in Maryland. And this conversation is very, very relevant to that for me. So respectfully, if I can find my place here and if everybody's comfortable with me being here, then I'll stick around.
You are welcome. Thank you for participating. And I don't know
Thank
where
you so
I'd be without my venue, owners, like without the stewards of the land that I do this practice on. So thank you for those of you who also, running a retreat center that's sex positive, just having a space that's sex positive, like that is helping this field. So thank you, Scott.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
I would love to hear someone brag or celebrate about their work. Who's next? Sialo and then Shibumi. Tell me how I say your name. Is it Sialo?
Cielo.
Sialo. Beautiful.
Yeah.
What do you love about your work?
Hi, guys. Well, a big change that happened for me recently over the last few months has been that I found ways to really deepen with my clients, so that I was seeing them in ways that had more commitment to it. And I was able to go a lot deeper with them because of that, and see a lot more progress with them as well. And it was really unexpected. Like, I didn't plan for it to happen that way, but it kind of fell into place because of COVID, because I wasn't interested in seeing more people. I was interested in going deeper with people I already knew. So it was a really beautiful accident I'm so grateful for.
Oh, that's a fantastic celebration. I just want to see a show of hands of other people like Cialo who wow, COVID changed my practice and I got an upgrade because of it. Like, who else really felt like, wow, I had to pivot in a way that was advantageous. That's gorgeous. Good. And for those of you whose hands aren't up, hopefully this will be that pivot point. Good. So I also got a raised hand from Kayla after we hear from Shibumi.
Okay, thank you. Oh man, yeah, it's growing. So much is happening. And in this movement, I feel like connecting to this Shiva energy, like being able to really anchor this present moment, like Shiva being pure consciousness. It's not the dance of Shakti. Shakti is this freedom of expression of all pains and agonies and joys and traumas and jigasms, and this finding this Shiva that's just pure consciousness, just like experiencing it, has really helped, I feel, the feminine to open up. She feels safe, she feels held, she's like stabilized for her chaotic brilliance. And in that is like such a reward to see all these different aspects, and to also be there for a woman who's going through a process and is so mad at me. And I say, be mad at me. What are you mad at me for? Like, keep going. And she has this idea that I was in this place. And I was like, well, look, I'm right here. That's impossible. And she's like, oh my God, that was my partner who I'm projecting onto you now. And I was like, well, be mad at me. Like, let me be a man that you're fucking like blah, because that masculine wants to serve that, because we know that you have so much inside of you that you can open up to. That this is what Shiva is teaching me as from the masculine perspective, is to be just in that space for them, for man and woman, to process and to move all that out.
That's
So
big medicine. How would you define or describe the work that you do?
so I do something online called Gigasmic Journey, and it's it can go breathing, it can go breathing self-massage, it can go breathing self-massage and genital stimulation, and they're like 2 to 3 hour journeys. And so it's the guidance of cultivating sexuality, be it in person, and it might be a yoni working, but mostly it's body work and then moving into yoni work. And so it's about opening channels, grounding the nervous system, reading to ourself and our sexuality, and then knowing that if we're in love or present moment long enough, the shadows gonna surface. And
Sure.
that's what that's the art of us cultivating the sexual energy, to raise our vibrations, to learn to embrace those patterns that we don't necessarily want to see. And that's what I feel this will happen with sexuality, is we're cultivating the energy high enough inside of our body to be able to actually embrace those shadows, pain, traumas. So
Got it. Yeah. Thank you.
Breath. Yeah, and breath.
Sweet. So I'm going to just take, I know that there's others with hands raised. I'm just going to take Kayla, and then we're going to hold the other celebrations, and we'll come back around to them, I'm sure. Kayla, start, if you would, with what it is that you do.
Sorry, did you mean Kaya?
Oh, Kaya, yes.
Okay, I was actually going to start looking through the room for Kayla. Hi, everyone, and thank you for hosting and for facilitating. I am a tantrika. I'm a sexual authenticity coach, and my primary practice is actually a teacher of the occult arts. And Tantra was something that I was doing from time to time, hosting workshops on Tantra and sacred sexuality. And actually, because of COVID, I've been able to gain more clients online. People who aren't working as much, or have more time to themselves and more time to do that inner work and to do some soul searching. Like, one of my clients actually called it spiritual COVID because it's been an opportunity for them to really go in. And so for me, I've actually gained more client access through on the online realm, and the work that I do is all online. And it's amazing how, as humans, we can really adapt and have these intimate moments even behind the screen.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's
You're welcome.
Okay, so we have a lot to celebrate. We've got a lot of wisdom and experience in the space, and that's just a little taste of it. But I do want to just talk collectively about some of the challenges that we are experiencing, and it's particular to this field. If we would kind of feel into, okay, well, what is it about love, sex, enlightenment, whatever, wherever the erotic current has taken your work, that is particularly challenging? Who wants to share? So I see, good, Nicole and then Debbie. And we're going to try to get see if we can crowdsource 5 separate challenges. Nicole, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I've been struggling a lot with visibility, like you mentioned, like Fosta Sesta and internet censorship has been a little bit of a tricky thing, because I was like promoting some more erotic work over the summer and got actually banned. And since then I've been worrying about being shadow banned, and that like a lot of my followers aren't seeing my materials on like internet platforms. And then I'm also struggling with inspiration of like seeing people in this field that are successful and are making like huge amounts of money and really feeling supported financially by the work. I feel like there are only like a handful of people that I know personally who are really achieving that success. And so sometimes, like after a couple of years of trying to promote my coaching work, just like feeling really frustrated and uninspired to keep pushing through and keep working through my own struggles because I don't see like a huge amount of inspiration of success.
Okay, so let's tease out the second one. And I think just, just for the sake of, again, you're speaking for the collective, if everyone would find on the reactions, if you go to the bottom in the reactions, you can actually do a thumbs up or heart. But I want to have a little visual to see who else's work was affected by Sesta Fosta. So you would just put like a thumbs up. Well, actually the thumbs up is kind of hard to see. Let's do a reaction of, you can make a little face on your screen. And I am curious because this is, it really was a game changer for our field and our culture. And it's like, something that a lot of us have had to be really creative. Okay, well, what other avenues are there for us to advertise? And so good. So we get a sense of you're not alone in that. I think you put the reaction on and then it goes away after a little while, which is great. Okay, so the next question I want for you, Nicole, before we go to the next, is that you offered two. And the second one is like you called it inspiration, but just so that we could relate, because there's something about, I guess it's comparison or, like looking at others in the field and looking at who's successful. But I kind of heard in what you were sharing, it's like, well, I don't see that many people that are doing really well. Or the ones that are, I feel envious of. I'd love for you to just kind of clarify what that challenge is like more.
So it is twofold. Like, I graduated from like a big coaching program, so I'm in contact with a lot of my coaching peers, and it seems like a lot of us are still struggling like 2 and 3 years after graduating, whereas we were expecting to have like full-time coaching practices and to have like a broad reach and being able to help like hundreds, potentially even like thousands of people around sexuality. So that's frustrating. And then it is also some jealousy and some envy and comparison where just the handful of people that I do see being successful, I'm like, what are they doing or what do they have that I don't have? And there is that comparison aspect that's
Thank
arising
you
for me
for
as well.
fleshing that out a bit. I've heard it described as the sex ghetto. And I don't know if you've heard that before, but like, also, so I've got a background in coaching. And if you look at internet coaches or coaching people these days, you'll see them be like, here's how I went from 6 figures to 7 figures. And let me post all of my bank statements online. And let me tell you about, and it's just like, whoa, okay, right. Like it's all about, this is the measure of how successful I am, is how much money I'm making, how many clients I have. Let me tell you how I turn this into that, and it's a little bit like, whoa, is that the measure of success? And it is in the business coaching model. And then when we're, coaching people in the area of sex and their heart and the kind of the work that we're in, that's not our yardstick. You know what I'm saying? Like, so there's a certain when it comes to sex and relationship, a lot of it not only attracts a different animal, but people are not paying the same as they will invest in business coaching as they will for their erectile dysfunction or whatever it is that they're, and so it's been called the sex ghetto because a lot of times it's like, well, I'm actually either giving my work away for free or I'm doing it for a lesser amount, and so a lot of people will not be making the rock star paycheck sum. And I'm here, I'm not going to give you a big rah-rah speech. I certainly am, personally successful and surrounded by successful people who the measure of success changes. It just changes too. And I want to make this really clear because as we look at this list that we're crowdsourcing right now, we're making a list of these are our challenges. My come from as we look at it is, can we address it in a way that's satisfying to our soul? And that's living your life your way. And it's not saying that money is the is the answer or the way, but it's not saying money is not, and it's not the root of evil. Like money is energy. And we're looking at in relative priority to the way you want to live, you know, like that's a reasonable consideration, but it's not how we're measuring success here. So I'm stoked that you brought up the coaching, you know, comparison to the coaching models. And I can definitely relate to that as one of our challenges. And I want to get a few more. So who else would like to share? I see Debbie.
Mine's actually very similar to what Nicole said. You know, we've invested tens of thousands of dollars into this dream of becoming sex and intimacy coaches. And I think that a lot of those stories are even made up, quite frankly, about the success. But then I even thought to my niche is like women who love men, because that's what I know. I'm, you know, married and monogamous myself. And I thought, well, there's got to be a big niche for the mainstream. But even then it's really hard because the mainstream has so much shame and guilt around sex that I've been networking with gynecologists and such in my area and such, and they tell me they've given out my card, but does anyone ever, you know, call me? So I just think that unfortunately, even in the mainstream, there's just a taboo. And also I'm also concerned too, who others mentioned, about censorship on the web and things like that. So I finally actually switched over my LinkedIn profile from my professional career that I've had for, you know, ages to owning it as a sex coach. And that was actually a big move for me, is like coming out to all former colleagues and peers that I'm a sex coach now, you know. But yeah,
Good for you,
just
Debbie.
what's that?
Good for you. That's a big step. Yeah. So it's you know, there is this piece around having invested tens of thousands of dollars. It's like I've put a lot into this, and you know, it's not necessarily the return on the investment of what we are investing in working on our business doesn't come around, you know, as promised.
And huge time. I've invested huge time, but all I do is like market myself in social media and things. And it's like, I can't believe I'm not, you know, I mean, like I used to be in business and I'm like, I would get paid for doing this stuff.
Yeah. So let's call that challenge this like return on investment for all the energy that you're putting into it. Right. And I also want to just highlight this thing around mainstream versus niche, because by definition, and I really love, you know, was brought up before. It's like there is the sex ghetto means, okay, there's mainstream, but then the sex ghetto is like you're put in the back alleys, or, you know, you have to find a certain, and by definition, a niche is finding something that's not trying to address everything to everybody, right? So you're still probably finding your niche. And so I'd like to address that as an issue, because a lot of people, I mean, I'm just not trying to be a wordsmith or whatever, but specifically, if we try to offer our work to everybody, then we get nobody, right?
Agreed.
We got to know who our audience is, and women who are monogamous, you know, like that's a pretty big
niche. That's what I was hoping. I'm like, this is a pretty big niche.
Right. And the bigger the niche, it doesn't mean it's always better. It's sometimes better to go for, oh, I want pregnant monogamous women who are single, who, you know, now you know how to find them, you know. But I'm just saying, for all of us, okay, it's way past sunset. I don't know what's happening now. Telling me to take my supplements. Now you're finding your market is something I want to talk to everyone about. So whether that's real for you or not, Debbie, you bring that up very well. Thank you. And I might, you know what, we may even do mastermind, like bring you back and crowdsource some of the solutions from the group, because that's what we do in mastermind sometimes. But let's go ahead and take a few more shares.
I see Audra is raising her hand.
Great.
Yeah, what actually comes up for me around this is kind of fear of what people would think if I spoke more directly to sexuality, because I talk a lot about pleasure and I like embody my sexuality in a sensual way through the images that I use, but I hesitate to really, I guess, step fully into the sexual empowerment work, especially with my online, like public facing platforms. Because I have family who are like missionaries, or my dad who like identifies as a sex and like former like porn addict in recovery. And I guess I have a lot of worry of like triggering him, or just like what judgment might happen. I almost wonder what shame do I still have in myself around like the idea of sex work, or like coming fully out in the open as like a sexualized adult in front of my family. Mostly.
Yeah. Audra, it is Audra. That's beautiful. So we all have the inner game, like inside what is, what are our limits to our full expression? And then there's the outer game. There's the, okay, well, changing the labeling from pleasure to sexuality, that's actually an outer game topic, but what has to happen inside before I do that outside? And whatever the outside game is, we all have to look at, well, where are my blocks? Because sometimes they're blocks out here and sometimes they're blocks in here. So I'm glad you brought that up, but I do like, as a whole, just saying, like shedding that shame to do this work, because we know that that holds us all back to some degree. Yeah.
Especially too, like I don't identify only as a sexuality expert, like that's a small piece. And I definitely do want like people to know that that's a part of it, and that I am sex positive, but that I'm also like a general life coach and a business coach. And I'm working toward expressive arts therapy and ecotherapy and bringing that into my work. And I don't know, like I want to share like music and art, and I have a jewelry business, and I taught yoga for years, and I want to be able to express all of that. And it almost seems like it would be easier to get over that hurdle if sex was the only thing or the main thing, because I would have to show up and talk about it all the time. But it's just easy for that to like not be a priority or to fall through the cracks. And I don't know. It's just, that speaks to the overwhelm too of just being like multi-passionate, and like how do I package that in a focused way that people can understand what I do. Yeah.
So again, for just sake of empathy, there's a heart reaction. If you consider yourself multi-passionate, your work is like more than just about sex. Go ahead and give us a heart. I think that's really beautiful. And that might also be part of what, we're all, and sex does that. It like, its nature is to expand. Like when we're having sex, we get inspired and we get lots of other, access to lots more of ourselves. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Nobody wants to be kind of pigeonholed just into sex because they offer that.
Yeah, it's like the creative fuel and the life force energy and the power that drives everything else. And I think ties into like our money and our empowerment and our creative expression and our whole being. Yeah, thank you.
Sweet. So do we have one more? And a lot of us have spoken for, oh, those are my challenges. They've been named. So I'm asking, what are challenges that haven't been named? What else comes up?
Jenna is raising her hand.
Jenna, go ahead. Okay. Jenna and team.
And team, yes. So Phoenix also has a topic, and I have a topic that I'll speak to from my partner and I.
Great.
So we began teaching, not couples intimacy. I don't limit it to couples, but like partnership intimacy. And we started teaching at Tantra festivals and ran our first sensual tribal event for Valentine's Day last year. And it was amazing, such amazing work. And then this current event happened. And we just haven't, it just sort of has blown it up for us. We haven't transferred it online. I can't even conceive of doing the depth of intimacy work that we were doing in groups of like 15 and 20 people I can't even manage. I can't do it online. And so I'm just like, I have some grief about that. And I'd love to know, he has more grief about that. And I'd love to know if there's ways that I'm just not seeing of how to bring this work. I don't know. Yeah.
I'm really glad that you're part of this festival. I think this will open some things up for you guys. Good.
Yeah.
Phoenix, you had something else to add?
Yeah, and I don't think this has been covered yet, but so I've noticed since I've been kind of in this space around tantra and sexuality that there still is like almost like inner fighting or judgment from different factions of groups around like tantra, the definitions, who's allowed to teach sacred sexuality. You know, I experienced some jealousy from some people in the community where I live around like my success, and that, you know, I shouldn't be teaching because I didn't go through their training. And so I'm not, you know, a legitimate sacred sexuality practitioner, but it's such a wild west because it has to be right now. Like there's so much healing to be done. And so I guess maybe there's a little bit of inner fear that I have around really claiming who I am to be here in the world, because I'm maybe fearing some of that judgment from people that are like, well, you're not a tantrika unless you learned the Vajrayana technique. And then someone else will judge you and be like, well, you're not a real tantrika because you didn't do my training, or, you know, so that's what I love about ISTA. That's why I'm here, is because you have this community of people that support each other and celebrate each other. And so I guess the question is like, how do you continue to dig into this work and find community and build that when there is tension too as well in the industry?
Yeah, good. I definitely have an awareness of that. Like it's not on my radar, and I want to talk to you about that, but I have an awareness of that because I'm excited to tell you guys this next week. I'll be launching a new website, but of course you have to pilot that shit before you put it out. And I'm putting it out there to people, and they're like, oh, this and that and that. And I was just like, wow, people got lots of opinions going on about, you know, whether I'm a tantra teacher or I use, you know. So thank you. It's like almost like just came into my field, that infighting. So who's experienced that kind of infighting in the various sects of this work? Okay. Who's experienced a lot of cooperation and like first the infighting. So let's acknowledge that, like really that's out there. And then other hand, who feels well, I came into this and there's a loving tribe and community and support, and there's a lot of synergy, right? And so which hand may depend on where you live or when you came into the field, because there's been different, you know, trends happening. It might also just be who you know. It might also be the lens that you have, you know, looking at it. So you're bringing up a really great point, and how much of that, again, is the inner work, that whatever we have around the inner conflict within ourselves, and then the outer work of like, how are we putting it out there? Is it congruent with, you know, who we are and how we're being? So I'm just going to review the list, right? So I'm going to call that infighting. And then I have going up backwards, like how how to move our work onto online and to pivot, you know, during these times, changing our offerings. I have, you know, questions about like return on our investment in our marketing and all the energy that we put into the work. And there's, you know, the basic visibility. And I know that Nicole also brought up the question of just check, we have 5 kind of issues before we go on. Like this inspiration piece of like, okay, sometimes who else feels kind of like despondent or burnout or just tired from doing this work? Yeah. So I think I'm just going to put that on there as, hey, losing inspiration and burning out a bit. We didn't talk too much about it, but it's very common, especially right now when the whole globe is in like there's a trauma body and there's fear spasms happening, and we're sensitive beings. We're all empaths. You know, we wouldn't be doing this work if we weren't vibrating sensitively, feeling each other. And so all this is happening, and it's like impacting us personally as well. So with these challenges, there's obviously more that we could get into, but I want to just talk a little bit about some of the trends that I've seen. When I first, so in other words, I'm going to put these on hold. We're putting this on the shelf. We'll circle back around. And I am kind of nostalgic in this moment, as I'm feeling into this group at the international, the ISTA festival. When I came into ISTA, it was the Sedona festival. And I don't know, how many of you have worked with me before? So I have a few, near and dear friends here that I'm seeing. And then there's a lot of new faces, and the field, in the time I've seen it grown, has been amazing. Like, we are really at the beginning, like there's been a blooming and a blossoming, and it's amazing because when I started, we had before the Sex and Consciousness gathering, which was for years, we actually had a Dhaka Dakini conference. So this very conference has its roots in this kind of mastermind where it was only practitioners. So Dhakas and Dakinis came together. The very first one was 8 people in Dez's living room. And then it grew from there. And so Baba Des, who's on the back cover of my book here, my co-author of this book we wrote 16 years ago, or about 14 years ago now, we would be teaching to people who, and it really was just practitioners. And we're like, oh my God, I can't believe there's other people in the world doing what we do. Like, we had this feeling of like, we had to find each other because everyone was practicing like lone wolves. And there was no, it's like there was no network. And that network grew and grew. And of course, the field kind of caught up, like where people are like, wow, let's actually recognize that sex therapy, just talking about sex, can't transform sex in the same way that the body-centered practices, and that when we're talking about sex, it has to be somatic. And, so now there's all kinds of different expressions of it, as there should be. Like, there's no part in me, even though I've done Charles Muir's, Tantra training and education. Like, he has a Tantra educator course, and like I've done various programs, but there's no part of me that thinks, oh, it should be standardized and this is what it should look like. And we should all have this, because it is about our sovereignty. Like, what happens when we have a sexual awakening is we have a direct, unmitigated experience with Kundalini. And when that opening happens, we have to really stay true to what is that current that moves through me. And that sovereignty means, wow, I'm really plugged in so that I'm recognizing the God force energy coming through me. And I'm not going to like give that power and authority to some priest or priestess, that is above me now. It's like, actually, no, when that awakens, I have to be treated as the inner guru. And then what we do, like, the only time this work pathologizes, when I look to the left and the right through the years, and I look at who gets in trouble with the Me Too, or the, like all of the challenges that we're seeing, the sticky troubling part is often like, okay, wow, we activate people and then they don't know what to do with it. But what they'll do with it is they'll project it onto us. And sometimes, if not the projection and the relational stuff, the shame gets activated again, and we have to keep the current open and clean and stay in our sovereignty. And the only way to truly do that is to give our clients back their power. So we're not anybody else's priest or priestess. We're not doing, even though the book's called Sacred Sexual Healing, I'm not a healer. Or better said, as a healer, what I do is help people self-heal. So we're healer, heal the self, working on ourself, simultaneously supporting others to work on themselves, and being mirrors for each other, being stewards to support people in giving their power back. And I'm wanting to share that because more and more, I mean, it used to be very much a paradigm of like something's wrong, I need a magic touch, somebody come teach me how to squirt. It was their magic touch that's, you know, as opposed to like, I learned how to run the energy in my body. Instead, that person did it to me and I only squirt around them, or, you know, or some experience of like, wow, that person has some mystical, magical lingam or pussy, or that's, you know, that's the healing power. And then we see, you know, like a mess around people's practices. So at the end of the day, all of the work, regardless of how we do the work, is genuinely to re-empower individuals to awaken to their God force, and that their God force runs all the way up, all the way down their bodies. And when we gather as sacred sexual healers or erotic entrepreneurs, we want to remember, you know, we are here to serve. And it's not even just serve the individuals. Like, I'm not here to serve my clients. I'm here to serve the universal life force energy that runs through humanity in the various forms that it presents. And the way that I can serve through the years looks very different because of what that current needs is changing. And so my services change. Like, we are on the cutting edge of something, so we need to be willing and able and sensitive enough to actually evolve with it. And so, you know, this is a very extraordinary time, because we may have some ideas of, oh, I want to do this job this way and try to fit ourselves into some role, as opposed to say, okay, and I've invested all this money into, you know, this coaching training, so I think it has to look like this, or this is the formula to do it this way, and be like, wait a minute, am I serving the life force energy that's moving through me? Because the very first time I ever met Baba Des, when I, you know, drove across the desert to come to Sedona to gather at the Dhaka Dakini conference. And I was just learning, like, what is a Dakini? What, you know, like, I had been teaching private yoga sessions that were all about sexual yoga. And I was like, wow, I was doing that in closed doors privately. Here are these other people who have some experience, you know, that I can learn through. What is a session? That was literally my mindset when I started this. The clarity that Baba Des offered me, he said, you know, he's basically like, welcome, big hug. And I was like, what are we doing here? And he's like, this is a school of temple arts. And I was like, what are the temple arts? You know, we're all here at this International Temple Arts Festival. What is that? And he's like, we're the temples, and we're bringing heaven to earth. That's what we're doing here. And it's so easy to forget that and to get trapped, or to create an identity around how this temple has its unique offering and is doing this better than others. But it's like, wait a minute, if I'm in service in the temple, what do? I bow before the altar. And what do? I say, you know, great goddess, how do you want to use me? How can I serve you? You know, who would you have me be? What would you have me do? Who would you have me meet? You know, where am I, in other words, to advertise? What should I write on Facebook today? Or, you know, how can I use this time that I've allotted to work on my work to actually leverage like my gifts in the world? You know, like, this is a devotional act, you know, so how do I stay connected to the current that's moving through me? Because what I've seen as the field has grown and grown, and as, you know, I've gotten more information about how to be a better coach or better businesswoman, or what I've seen is a whole lot of noise and less signal. You know, and this is a moment in time when, you know, the world has taken this, we call it like a global Shabbat or a shamanic pause, to look inside, to deepen our roots, to say, well, what am I really here for? And if we're clear that I'm here to serve the life force energy, how do I stay in the signal of that and cut through a lot of the noise? Because that's the impulse that's going to ultimately be deeply rewarding to my soul. And when this is from the depths of my heart, in the depths of my experience from having mentored a lot, when I bring value to people, I get valued for it. And when I value myself, then I start seeing that there's a energy exchange, financial, that is right relation. Okay, cool. I'm bringing a lot of value juice. I'm valuing myself. I'm overflowing that to my clients. And now they can bring it back, and I receive that gratitude with abundance. I receive that value, and it feels like right relation. And so, there are lots of specifics that can look at, like, well, how does that translate to my work, individually? But I can genuinely say that everybody in this circle, that we can all benefit from getting clearer and closer to that initial signal, that, like, what is the true erotic current that wants to move through me? In other words, what are my gifts and how can I give them? So, it's really fun to reflect on that. And it's also fun to get into the juicy details, because I am practical. I'm a very 3D person, and that's part of the beauty of being a tantrika, is being like, hey, we can be in both worlds, a foot in the spirit unseen world and a foot in the 3D practical, like, what kind of font do we want to use on the website? And then what kind of funnels are we going to use in terms of, ClickBank, or what kind of, like, those are the questions that we can geek out about when we are looking through the lens of how does this serve the gift, as opposed to, oh, what do I have to do? Or I want to look like someone else, or, that can drain our energy. So if we really center ourselves, and we're all here to serve Lady Kundalini, then I'm going to bring us back, to the conversation, and we can brainstorm and troubleshoot and kind of look at what are the solutions that are next for us in our business. So my impulse right now is to take a few questions and comments, and then go into a little triad so that we can do some deeper self-reflection on our own businesses. Questions and comments first.
There are a few things from the chat from before. Would you like me to read them?
Sounds good.
How do we offer them something they don't know they want? Articulating the core of what could support them. What the shadow work of all the communities. How about creating a market in the area of shame?
Repeat that last one.
How about creating a market in an area of shame?
Okay. Yeah, I might need clarity on that, but that's okay. We'll see if that comes back around.
Kamala,
yes.
I would like to introduce what is the role, this is just a statement, a phrase, and it's not a question, but it's just, what is the role of a cisgendered, male-bodied person in this conversation and in the industry, as in service to the public or the community? Not a question.
Got it. Thank you. I want a presence to, like, I happen to be Latina, non-binary, and of Jewish descent. All right. That's my personality, but that's my biographical persona. And this is actually a conversation of soul. So the soul of a cisgendered white male is
Totally got it.
not relevant. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, but thank you. And it takes all of us. It takes all colors, shapes, sizes, for our clients to say, I see myself in your reflection and I feel safe and I want to open to you. And great. I happen to be wearing this costume and have this background. Well, awesome. I can serve a certain people that will open and resonate, and you can serve people that can open and resonate to you that would never to me. So that's the that's the beauty of our diversity.
I'm glad I asked, because that really landed beautifully as an answer. Thank you so much.
Great.
So I have a curiosity, if I may, about, as we get back to normal. I mean, I come from worlds with so much touch and love. I'm retired, but I teach a little yoga when I can. I'm the yoga dom. But I just see it like, I see the world of touch as it's just going to be so different. Like, we're going to be so hungry for it. I mean, I have my beloved with me, so I get enough touch needs met, but especially as, sex and touch and energy workers to and we actually just signed up for ISTA in June. Hopefully it'll be safe to go. And partly because I'm just not sure how it will be to go and be with large groups of people in that orgasmic temple undulating puppy pie. Like, that sounds terrifying to me right now. So with this group, I'm just envisioning the career blossoming that will happen once,
Right.
once things are lifted, So
I love the mystery that we're all moving into. And I don't have answers, none of us do, of what it's going to look like. But I will say this. So I came out as queer in the 80s, and it was a very different time than it is now. And it was post-plague, the plague was just, and my sexual awakening was really post that plague. And I deeply, I look back at the AIDS crisis and I look back at what it did for the gay, lesbian, transgender community. And there couldn't have been a more accelerating gift to what it did, not just to the queer community, but also to the arts. There's so much awakening and bonding and resources that came about because of AIDS, that none of us would be here right now where we are. It was absolutely one of the most accelerating things for sexuality on the planet. Accelerated the ability to communicate about it. And yes, it gripped us in fear, and some of us still have active trauma around those times. But it also, through that crack, it also created a whole new conversation around sexuality, that we're all benefiting from in unseen ways. And I know that it's one thing to be like, okay, STI tests and condoms and now PrEP, than to say you can't breathe on me. You know what I'm saying? You can't we're talking about basic breath, right? And just touch, handshakes are dangerous, right? Mm-hmm. So I just want to say that and I'm not here to be just Pollyanna, but genuinely, this kind of global pandemic crisis becomes a training module for Earthlings. So where we used to be very fragmented and separated, and we might feel very isolated because the borders are closed right now, the truth is we as a human race, for the first time, have a global problem that we're all saying we have to fucking work together to work this out. And so welcome to the human race. We're now on the same planet. We didn't used to be. And so there are immensely great things that are going to happen for the world soul as a result of going through this training module. This is a test for our soul that on the other side of it, the world soul will prevail so much stronger. So we're here as guides in sacred sexuality to say, how do we stay true to the universal, the life force energy that's bigger than all of us? It's bigger than our relationships. It's bigger than our cultures that have limitations on it. We have to keep staying true to that. And that's what we're in service to, and to not get seduced into the stories of the separate self. And really truly feel that's the biggest enemy of this work in the world. Like, our work in the field is that we keep getting seduced into the separate self. And it's also true of the limitations of our business, like the times in which, and we can look at all the business questions that we brought up, all of them are compiled if we're looking at it from the I, as opposed to the, oh, wow, my greater soul is here with a collective, and together we can move through this in a way I couldn't have thought of on my own. So thank you for the reminder. And I invite us to lean into our triads and to actually just feel together. In a moment, we'll go into the 2-minute shares. And it's like, okay, in my work, here's what I want to ask you. Actually, this would be the most leveraged question. 2021, if you could wave a magic wand and your business could take a next leap, and what's the outcome you'd like to see in your business in 2021? What's the most exciting thing that you're creating in your work this New Year's? So take 2 minutes to just explore that with your buddies, and we'll come back for a harvest. Sharon, when you're ready, we'll do.
So it's gonna be 2 minutes for each person, so 6 minutes total of the breakout rooms?
No, the breakout rooms will be groups of 3. So it'd be 2, 6, 9, 10 minutes total. So you have 2 minutes to share each, and then a minute to come back. Great. And if you happen to be in a room and there's only 2 people, just take 3 minutes each. Great. Any questions about the exercise?
Could you put the prompt in the chat, please?
Sure thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're writing? You have a way to write them into
I'll
the
send
break?
it to you and you can announce it. There we go. Okay, so welcome back. I'm going to invite you to just tune your energy back into the circle. So take a moment to, it's such a energetically, when you're with the triad, there's a deep presence there, and then there's an expansion that we have to do to say, okay, now we're with a, we're in a larger circle, and it's still quite an intimate space, and notice for a moment what you bring to the circle. Like, you are a unique flavor, and allow yourself to feel yourself as you bring it to the soup. And then notice too, just how that informs your own flavor, like your frequency may adjust because of who's listening. I'd love to have a few shares of who, got a big insight or a new perhaps outcome or goal. So what the question's not so much, and you're welcome to share, like, what is it that you're creating, but it's also, what did you learn about yourself in that triad, in that breakout? So a little bit of a harvest of what's coming through right now. What are you learning? Any insights? Go ahead and raise your hand. Good, Shibumi and Mirdam. Great, let's hear from Mirdam first, since we haven't yet, and then Shibumi next. Yeah.
Yeah, hi, and thank you. Well, I just totally have this, the full acceptance that it's the soul who's in charge, and constantly maneuvering us and me, in this movement, and synchronicities, are just like everyday thing, moment to moment development, and I feel like there's a part of me that's still very much learning to swim in the unknown, and learning to lean into it, to lean on to all of this, but it's like constantly I feel like that the hand of God is like so firmly coming and kind of just gently pushing me forward, and that's so amazing, because in many ways it's not obvious that I should be calling myself sex worker or something like that, but inside, it's been there for a long time, and now now I'm trying to come up with a title, and it's being torn, and it's being like, I really want to try to articulate as well as I can, and sometimes I rather be silent because I feel like I can't really articulate it yet, because it's all just so etheric and somehow the co-creative, like I can't speak of these things alone, because I feel like it's like we're together pulling the things, into form. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. It's sweet to see the empathetic hearts. You're speaking for a lot of us. It's the paradox, truly, of having a foot in the world of the unseen, and then the work that we're doing, bringing it through the body. And we want to put it into words, but any words we use, any title we use, it's always insufficient. And we have to be okay with that. It's like a gross approximation of who I am and what I do. And then somebody asked this question of like, how do, to help articulate for our clients who are equally, like, if we spend our lives devoted to like, I want to serve this and try to get this across, and they're just like, how do I even express the needs that I have? They don't even know. And so it is, our gross approximation meeting their inadequate description of, where they're suffering. And we just keep showing up and doing what love does.
And also trying to like allowing it to be so open, like allowing for more space all the time, instead of like offering a limitation, but actually like, how can I allow this to be more open when holding breaths, and it's
I do.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And I also want to articulate this from the queer community, because there's a lot in sexuality, a lot of people, when you're saying, okay, well, how do you identify sexually? And people are like, well, I don't like labels. There's a real big movement of like, oh, I'm fluid or genderqueer, but I'm not going to be labeled, and the challenge is, without labels, then how do you know? Like, there is a genuine sense of there's a transmission that happens if you're in a female body and you're in a circle that's specifically for women. You know, you're like, wait, this is we are in a moment of communion that is specific. And if we never even called ourselves women, we couldn't have that. And so I just really want to acknowledge the power of titles and labels, and even taglines and website domains. And, you know, like, they're very potent and they're very powerful, and they can be tools to empower us, or they can be tools to imprison us if we think that's all we are. But we don't want to say, I don't want to call myself anything, because then we can't fucking market and we can't even communicate what it is that we are. So we want to use them as empowering tools and just never believe that that's going to limit us. Yeah. Great. Shibumi, what did you get from the triad?
Ooh, I just want to say thank you so much. This is an incredible gathering of people. Thank you for leading this like this. The Trinity threesomes are so incredible, because it's like anything in this reality, third dimension has 3 legs. It's so stable. So realizing that we can't do this ourselves, at least it doesn't appear to be, but for me and another one of the threesome was all about this. And then the very last one who spoke was like, took all this and brought it down. And it felt like her serving us like that just brought the upper vision back down. So it was so beautiful to feel that energy and how we all played a role in each other's moments.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah. Love the soul tribe and how we mirror and support each other. Did I have another hand or two? I see Leanne. Yes.
Yeah, I actually was part of that triad. For me,
were you the grounding part?
No. I said it seemed like we were like, whoo, whoo, ooh. For me, it's so apparent that when we honor our authenticity and our individuality, that anything that we see is completely possible, and other people believe that you're capable of doing it. And I saw that. I mean, I felt like when I was saying my thing, like, this is who I am, and that's the reflection back that I got. And both of the people in my group, when they were saying their thing, I 100% believe them. Like, I get it. Yeah. Step out of your own way. 100% yes. And when it's something different where I feel like, oh, okay, I have to do this multi-level marketing thing, whatever, because of blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that's not me. Like, it's never going to work. So, yeah, just like, shine your you. And yeah, that's powerful. So that's my reflection.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, I have a hit to talk about a little bit bigger picture about goals, because this is the beginning of the year. And I'm looking at the time, and I think I'm also really wanting you to get the most out of this. And I genuinely feel that I want to continue with you. I just want you to know, like, we're coming to the close, but I hope our relating and our communion and our conversation doesn't stop in 20 minutes. In other words, I'll, and even if it's not with me, like, I want you to continue to get the support by other sacred sexual professionals so that you can do this work more powerfully. You need each other. And I hope you get that from this. But when we make a goal, and we know, because we're magicians, we're all doing sex magic at some level. So we know that when we set a goal, it can be, here's the specifics and here's the time, right? That's the difference. That's how a goal is defined, which is very different than an intention. An intention is, okay, I have this value that I want to vibrate into the world. And intentions, especially in sex magic, work really powerfully when there's something that I have the locus of control over. So if I want, the intention is, for example, for my husband to be a better lover, like I have no control over that. That is not a good empowering intention, right? That's like, oh, cool, I might want that for him or pray that. But genuinely in our work, look inside and go, well, what, I just stated an outcome, but what do I actually, who do I have to be in the frequency of that? But more importantly, okay, I want to ask you all, if you had that, and I don't know what your intention was, but I'm hoping and praying that it's aligned with your value and your soul's calling. A lot of times we think we want something and we set an intention and it's actually just what we thought we wanted, and it's not coming from, this is what what the evolutionary impulse in me wants to emerge. And when we actually align with that, we can't stop it. It'll just come through us no matter what. So I invite everyone to deeply inquire, first and foremost, is, what I'm intending, is that coming from God? Like, are those my operating instructions, or is that my mind saying, this is what I think I want? But when you have that thing, right, which awesome, and that it might be specific and color coded and have a by when date, when you have that, ask yourself, how will I feel? Like, genuinely, am I going to feel like accomplished? Am I going to feel elated? Maybe I'll feel expanded or a little bit naughty. Like, what is it that I'm going to feel? And then I invite you, this is a real alchemy, is to feel that now, is to choose to feel now how you'll feel when you get that thing, and to keep vibrating at that level, because then that thing is like really more of a match for, regardless if that thing ever comes to you, you are being the feeling of why you wanted it anyway. And that's within your domain of control, like to be in the beautiful state of what you're wanting. And I'll tell you this hack, okay, because you all have been, conceptually, everyone here gets the law of attraction. I know it. Some of us are absolute magnets. Some of us are like, why is my magnet a little bit broken? It could be the inner game. It could be like what you're doing on the outside. But really, here's the hack. Okay, the hack is whatever you're working towards. And I'll give you a perfect example. I'm the author of a handful of books, right? So I have these on my this is my moment of bragging. I have these on my shelves and I get to say, yay, I wrote these books. And right now, this year, the one thing I'm super excited about is selling my next book. I today got a rejection letter from a publisher. And yes, I celebrate the rejection letter. And when I got the rejection letter, I did this hack, which is naturally my body contracted. I was like, oh, I really wanted that publisher. And then I was like, wait a minute. What is it that I'm really wanting? Like, I have a story to tell. I want to get it out there. It's about the hermaphroditic soul. That's what the story's about. And it's not been told and the world needs to hear it. So I got into the energy of like, this story wants to be told through me. And what is the feeling that I'll feel when that story gets sold? I'm like, oh, okay, I'm in that energy. And from that place, I continue to work on whatever little baby step is, which is actually, I went back to my agent, told my agent, hey, let's go ahead and pitch it to someone else. I took the next step, which is a 3D action I had to do. But I took that 3D action, not from I got rejected and I'm feeling contracted and it's never going to get published. Instead, I took that 3D act, I shifted my state, got into love, and then I do what love does, which is like, okay, if I'm confident that this is the energy that I'm being in the world, what do I do next? I write my agent. So I'm sharing this with you because it's the vibrational practice. And sometimes it takes like, oh, I can't shift this. I need to run my tools. Sometimes I need to go self-pleasure. Sometimes I need to, but whenever I'm doing anything, I want to be in the energy of, you know, what I'm creating and who I'm being. And so as you've all made a declaration and had 2 witnesses, I invite you to take that into your self-pleasuring. I invite you to say, okay, let me really anchor. In fact, take a moment with me now and say, let's get into, you know, vibrationally, no matter what time it is during the day, like, what are you going to feel when you get that thing? And let your body have a reference point in your nervous system. I want to hear popcorn style, just a few words of like, what is it that you'll feel when you've realized that outcome?
Flowy and joyous.
Ooh.
Expansive and calm.
Oh, sweet. Allow yourself to body empathy as things are said. What else? What are you going to feel?
Light and free.
Woohoo.
Accomplished and empowered.
Yes.
Relaxed and generous.
Mm. And whoever's going next, give me a body motion as you say the words. Like embody it. There you go. Who's next?
There.
Go, 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 go.
Grounded and free.
Woohoo.
Horny.
Woo, yeah. Gonna feel turned on and aroused. Nice. Good. Okay, so I invite you to write down a word or 2 to anchor that, and maybe emotion, and be like, okay, when I get out of that state, I need to come back into this state in order to take action towards it. So, you know, there is an ongoing process as we set our intentions and course correcting and accountability. And I want to say how fucking important it is to be accountable to peers that you respect, you know, people that you love and you actually care how they would advise you, to actually tell them, hey, we're working on this. And I know that they're interested in what I'm doing. It asks us to be the best version of ourselves. So it ups our game. So I'm going to give you a few homework assignments, you know, just tools to work on in your toolbox, since we are wrapping up this time. But I'm also going to invite you to continue with me, you know, beyond the festival. Actually, the Chinese New Year is coming up on the 12th, the new moon. And I will be hosting another erotic entrepreneurial mastermind. Also, this is actually my gift to you. This is not for charge. This is a gift. So I want to have you send me your email address so that I can give you that invitation. And you can do that in the chat. You can just send your name and an email address in the chat. Actually, it says your name, so just your email address. And then I'll send you the invitation for another erotic entrepreneur mastermind like this. But think about, what do you want to create just between now and the 12th, so you can show up, you know, and update your, you know, that. But the homework that I have for you is to I was going to say write an elevator speech, but these days elevator speech is now, oh, that's what I talk about when I'm about to have sex. You know, we have these sexual elevator speeches about your STIs and and you know, now we have COVID elevator speeches about our protocols. But I want to take it back to the original meaning of an elevator speech, which is genuinely like, if you and I were in the elevator and we had a minute's worth of a ride, maybe 45 seconds. And I said, oh, nice to meet you. What do you do? And you were to just tell me what you do, you know, how successful would you be? Or would we be fumbling at the door at the end of it being like, wait, but let me tell you, it's not always that. And I'm more than that. And, you know, it's like, can you put your offering into a succinct pitch? And here's the formula that I'm going to give you to support you for doing that. Okay. It's a 3-part formula. It's very simply, write this down. You know how, ... and then state the problem that you see that you actually address. Okay. Well, what I do is, and this is where you tell people how you work, or what it is that you do, and you say, next, it's, you know, the third part is, are you interested? Or do you know anybody who might benefit from my service? You know, if you're talking to me and you only work with men, then you might say, do you know any guys that might have erectile dysfunction and need my help? You know, so what the 3-part formula is can you state, here's a problem that I see in the world that I actually support? Well, what I do is, and then the answer is, you're not complete with the elevator speech if you don't hand someone a card or get their email or say, you know, are you interested? Can I, you know, you have to kind of ask for more of a connection, because otherwise I'd be like, oh, nice to meet you. Good luck with your job. Bye-bye. And it's like, well, great. I didn't make the connection, right? So if we were in a very crowded elevator, all of us squished in together, and you asked me in this moment, I'm going to take a stab. This is not written down. Oh, KamalaDevi, what are you doing? And I would say, well, you know how erotic entrepreneurs are often alone in their work because of the shame and the inability to, like, the lack of social acceptance for the type of sexual healing that's necessary. You know how they're alone? Well, what I do is I provide a mastermind where we can get together and brainstorm and troubleshoot and support each other so that we can be the best versions of ourselves as sacred sexual healers. Does that sound like something you'd be interested in? Or do you know someone that would? Here, let me give you my card, right? And in this case, it's, let me give you my website so you can sign up for my next mastermind. So how simple is that? And that's off the top of my head. You can massage it, you can play with it, but I invite you to do that. I could have given you one for my writing of books. I could have given you one for my sex and relationship coaching, or my Tantra theater troupe that I run. You know, you can have different speeches for different offerings, but either way, you just want to say, here's the problem, here's the solution. Are you interested? And usually it's like, would you like to talk more about it? Because it's just an introduction, right? And sometimes instead of saying, would you, are you interested? You might even say, I offer an hour consultation for free, or a discovery call, or my initial session is $250 as an interview to see if we're fit, or whatever it is that you're offering. You might even give them a time and a price so that they have a sense of whether they're fit or somebody else might be. All right. So that's your homework. And I invite you to get that done before we see each other on the new moon, if you choose to continue with me. And I know that we have just a few moments here. We have 10 minutes that I'd like to open to a kind of a Q&A, and make sure that if anyone's got burning questions, that we can wrap that up. Okay, I see Amy.
I'm a big word of mouth person. even when I was doing other work, general facilitation and nonprofit stuff, all of my gigs came to me from people I met or word of mouth. And I don't personally do social media for my own stuff, but I thought, should gear up for that because that's needed for these businesses. And I have lots of people come to me with interest from word of, and I often end up with this dilemma of
So Amy, your internet just cut out. I think you went on to mute again, but no problem. The gist of what I'm getting is that word of mouth is your wheelhouse, and the dilemma is
so folks are like becoming friends at the same time. They're like, it's like an acquaintanceship is kind of turning into a friendship, or it could become a client, and they're both kind of happening simultaneously, and it feels kind of awkward.
Okay, great. So Amy, at the end of your call, like go ahead and put a heart if you can relate to this, because at the end of our call, you probably brought up the number one problem. When I troubleshoot problems, it's like, I'm falling in love with my clients are my friends, like this is the number one thing that arises in this industry, which is completely a different animal if you are in a lot of the professions that have very professional lines about, okay, cool. We have a 6-month policy where we don't interact as friends, or students and teachers don't, so that is absolutely a whole beautiful area of discussion. And it's such a controversial one because I genuinely, I would not be the master mentor that I am if I didn't sleep with all of my teachers. How could I learn? And I don't mean all of them, but mostly, how can I learn Tantra if it's not in the body, in the relation, And so that thing of, okay, well, they're my mentors and I have students, right? And yet then do I charge them? Because we have a loving relation, that question is a huge question, and it's ripe with all kinds of ethical and moral, dilemmas. And it's really important to navigate certain basic distinctions, like at the foundational level, is the person sovereign? What is consent? And then are we clear? You and I, Amy, we might work really deeply and fall in love and be best friends in our work together. Well, are we clear that when we're working together in this particular line of development, I might be mentoring you, but then you might be my mentor in some other area? And so we'd be like, okay, we're hanging out as horizontal friends, but then let's go into role where we're vertical and I'll be your mentor for this mastermind. But now we're back to horizontal, and maybe I want to learn cooking from you where you become my mentor. And having those kinds of conversations where we get into dual roles where the lines are clear is so important. Yeah. And
I'm hearing explicit.
Yes, explicit and clear, and then having the language and having the consent to do it with integrity. But I also want to celebrate and acknowledge that word of mouth is the best way. All the bells and whistles that you might learn from me or your master coaches, our greatest sphere of influence, the greatest, we are missionaries, and our ministry is the people we know. And it may or may not be appropriate for you to be doing sacred spot on, family and friends, and you might make a choice of who to work with, but to actually know that your sphere of influence, the people that are in your life, are magnetically there for the awakening. And and we're all here to awaken each other. So to not rule out oh, I need to meet them over here. It's more like, hey, how do I enroll my friends and family to actually help refer me to my ministry? Because that's what I'm here for. And if they want to see me, I want to see all my friends and lovers in their full expression. So I want to support them. And networking is such an important tool that when we're in the area of sex and relationship, we kind of shy from it sometimes. because we're like, oh, I don't want to it can get sticky or messy. It's like, how do I do that with integrity? Because that's how we get our ministry, and not shy from our own sphere of influence. So I'm glad that you brought up word of mouth. Yeah, what a powerful penultimate question, because that might be the next to last. Who's got a final question? I know that we've got other unanswered questions in the chat, and we're gonna just be okay with the inquiry. Nina.
Thank you. Yeah, this is kind of in response to what Amy said, and I'm not really an entrepreneurial person, but being on the other side, you know, I'm at a festival or a camp, and I meet you, Kamala, in the food line, and we're having this great conversation, and my heart's opening, and we're feeling love, and then you're like telling me about your workshop and handing me your card, and suddenly that's for me a contraction, because I'm like, does she really like me, or does she just hope I'll spend money on her? You know? And that's been a I mean, I'm in communities where it's clear, you know, who's getting paid, who's paying, and other communities where it's like, we're all in it together. Like New Culture is like that. Like, here we all are having fun and co-creating, but then there's these like superstars or people who think that they're superstars maybe. And I'm like, well, you know, I have stuff to contribute and I'm not marketing it to you. I'm just enjoying friendship. But maybe that's my privilege, you know, as a retired person. So anyway.
So it might be a privilege. It might also be a wound, right? So Nina, I'm just going to challenge you for a moment. You have stuff that you're promoting, but you don't want to promote because you have the belief that if I, you know, so KamalaDevi hands me her book and says, oh, you know, I hope that you get this, because I really put a lot into it, and I think it'd be right for you, right? And I hand it to you, and then you go into, oh, our friendship, that invalidated our potential friendship, instead of like, she's giving me something that she's trying to offer me, something that she wants from me. What do I want for her? Maybe I want her to come to my workshop, or maybe this is a moment where I can tell her what I do and see if we're a match, or if we have medicine for each other, right? But there is something in your story that says, if someone offers me their professional work, then it invalidates our personal relating. And so my question in the mirror to you is, when I, Nina, offer someone my professional work, or make a professional invitation, does that then mean I don't care about them personally? Am I only offering it to people I want to come to my workshop, and I'm seeing them as a dollar bill sign or a money sign, as opposed to really seeing that this is a soul that could benefit from the work that I'm offering?
And maybe it just depends on the situation. Like, I'm thinking of one particular situation, so maybe I have a wound from that, and that's not really true in everybody that I meet that's marketing themselves, you know?
For sure.
Just to acknowledge that.
You know, and it's always case dependent, but it is often important to look at, when I judge people for their marketing, this is so important. Like, when I am out there and I'm like, ew, their marketing seems sticky or salesy or this or that, right? Like, who's had that judgment? Like, we all have seen it, and we notice what comes up in us. What about saying, okay, that's not my style, but I'm not going to judge that, because I am going to judge that, and I'm going to look inside and go, this is my shadow work. What is it about the way they're promoting that makes me barf in my mouth, right? Like, that actually tells me a lot about what I value, what I don't like. And it's probably what keeps me from being really big. Most of us will like kind of be like, oh, I don't want to be too salesy. And then we choose not to self-promote. Like, oh, I don't want to be sleazy. And so there's a certain, I think they call it a tall poppy syndrome down under, where it's like, somebody stands up and you want to cut off the tall poppy. That happens in our field all the time. In fact, earlier on when it was brought up that there's the infighting, like, oh, they're a tantra teacher. That's just, oh, they call themselves sacred sexuality or this or that. What that is, whenever somebody's in that conversation, that tells me way more about the person making the judgment than it does about me and how I'm conducting myself, right? So it's just a deep invitation in the field to say, oh, if I'm going to be responsible as a marketing magnet, as someone who's putting my work out there, and it's genuinely like, we want to send the bat signal out and say, hey, I have this to offer. Who's attracted to the bat signal? I want to look at the shadow and say, what judgments do I have on marketing? Because those judgments keep me operating a certain way. Instead, I say, wow, there's lots of different styles. And I can say that doesn't work for me because I value this. Let me put my energy into this way of marketing. And I do genuinely understand that when we're marketing, have to guard ourselves from just seeing people as potential clients. Because the minute we're seeing them as a transactional, like, ooh, are they going to hire me? We're missing the fact that, hey, we're here to serve the awakening, whether or not they hire me today or 10 years from now, or maybe a conversation with me opens them up to having a session with Shibumi or someone else in this group that then changes their whole life. And thank God I was the doorknob for them to go through the door somewhere else. Okay, so juicy stuff. I really want to continue, but I know there's lots more, and this is a lifelong conversation. And I invite you to distill down your lesson from tonight. Like if you're to say you got one takeaway, put it into a word, and we'll do a closing circle where you can just say that you, as you exit, you can say the one thing that you took away from tonight that you want to remember, and I hope you apply it, and I hope you stay in touch. I love you and thank you. Yeah. So out loud, if anyone wants to share what they got in a word.
Service to the divine.
Aho.
Soul calling.
Mm-hmm.
Permission to evolve.
Hats off, respect, seriously, to all of you.
Yeah.
Deep group presence and community.
Trust in self.
The word soul tribe is just, it's so real for me. And I really, really feel like you are my people. We're doing this together. Thank you and blessings.
Thank you, Kamala. It was absolutely wonderful and masterful.
It's good seeing you, Scott. Take care.
Appreciate it so much. Have a great night.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to put the people that are still here in the waiting room so we could wrap it up.
Okay. I copied the chat, so I'm all set. Thank you so much, Sharon and Bella. I really appreciate your support. It was super sweet tonight.
Yeah, I loved it. If you have any feedback, something that you would like to share about the way so we can learn,
This
feel
was,
free.
yeah, this was great, but I do look forward to connecting more on the path. So take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.